All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming to this is the penultimate entry in the summer webinar series. We've got one more to go, and then we're going to kick off the regular webinar series. We're going to kick it up to probably 2 a month starting soon. So if you enjoy the webinars and you like the new content, there's going to be more of it. We do take a little break in the summer because we know how busy everybody is. I hope your summer went very, very well. We've got lots of new stuff coming down the pike for you that you're going to see all sorts of announcements about. It's going to be a really interesting and dynamic end of 2024 and start of 2025. And you guys as RB family are really in for some good stuff as things move on. So I'm very excited. There's lots of new features, new announcements, all of that good stuff coming your way. And I can't wait till some of those releases hit you. I think it's going to be really positive for almost everybody involved. Today, though, we're going to take a look at accounts receivable. Some of you are here because you do not currently implement AR in your business, and that's okay. Some of you are here just to freshen up and make sure that you're not missing something, and the rest of you are somewhere in between. Today, we're going to talk about why AR might be a very powerful tool for you to leverage in your RB and business installations. AR is a very powerful accounting tool that allows you to extend credit and sort of normalize payments from your customer base. If you're using it, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, or if you guys were a cash up front sort of place, that could potentially hinder some business, and AR might be the solution that you're looking for. As you know, RB is way more than just a POS. It is a complete business management solution, and that includes leveraging customer accounts through accounts receivable. So today we're going to look at some of the settings and the setup stuff that we have to consider before we even think about bumping a sales order to AR. Then we're going to talk about how AR in RB fundamentally functions. We know that you're going to bill customers, but the question is how and why and what's the best way. And while there's not necessarily a solution that one size fits all, there are a lot of very common options, and probably within the first 2 or 3, you're going to find one that works for your business. And then last but not least, if time permits, and I suspect that it will because AR is very straightforward, we're going to talk about how online bill pay synergizes with AR. Most, if not all of you, have the online bill pay module. It was a one-time add-on that most of you got when you signed up with RB that allows you for next to nothing. It's $15 a month, flat, not per customer, total $15. Allows you to give your customers an online bill payment portal. So just like their bank account, they can log into their account with your store, see all of your invoices, and make payments through RB Smart Pay. Like I said, I am fairly certain that we'll get to that implementation. And again, it's very straightforward, so it's easy to use once it's turned on. So let's hop right into it and remind you that your questions are always, always, always welcome. If you go to the questions tab in your Google Meet right now, down at the bottom, there's a little activities button. It looks like a stack of blocks, right? It's got a triangle on top of a square and a circle. If you click that activities button, that's where you will find the Q&A module, and that is where you can queue up your questions. I will take the questions at the end because, like I said, I'm sure we're going to have some time for it. But if they're topical and I can fit them in during the presentation, or if I notice, because I am one-man show today, I will make sure to get those in for you. But your questions are always welcome. If you're not certain, or if it sounds like something that's very mundane, you may want to hold on to it. I'm not discouraging questions, but it might get answered during the presentation. And then, of course, formally at the end, we'll go through any questions that might pop up. And if I do a really good job, there might not be any. Our last webinar, we had no questions, which I take that as a win. So what is AR? Why do we want to use it? Well, AR is plainly where you bump customer invoices, whether it's sales orders, whether it's register purchases, whether it is big ticket items or weekly service. It's where you take those balances and bump them to be paid. Now, almost everybody is running an accrual accounting method, and that's the most common accounting method if you do use an accounts receivable implementation, because when you kick a balance to accounts receivable, it is recognized revenue. Even though you don't have the cash in hand, it is taxable recognized revenue because you've effectively extended credit to your customer, and you can do things like assess late fees and interest on balances once they're in AR. So that's why that happens. Now, if you're a cash accounting method, if you're cash, there's different ways that your accountant can recognize that. RB will still handle and report those, but just for clarity and the sake of my demo today, I'm set up for accrual because that is what almost everybody that's going to be using AR is going to be set up for. What are the benefits of having a solid AR practice? Why would I want to effectively extend credits to my customers and then have them pay me? Right? The old joke is above the cash register, there's a sign that says no credit. But if we use AR, we're extending credit. The big reason is it's a great way that you probably are going to get paid. Short of having your full balance paid before a conversion, if you provide any work, services, or goods to a customer, there's no guarantee that you're going to get paid. And having an AR structure is a little more formal, and it's a lot more productive statistically. Kicking an account to AR to be paid versus just having a traditional sales order and sending invoices, for whatever reason, even though mechanically from the customer's perspective, they're still writing the same check. Having a balance presented as an account has a 65% higher recovery rate on bad debt. What does that mean? That means that we know you're always going to have some customers that we want to fire, some customers that don't pay their bills. That means that 6.5 out of 10 of those customers are more likely to pay if you leverage AR. That is not an industry thing. That is a retail stat across the board. So is it specific to the pool industry? No, I couldn't find data. I always try to, but I couldn't find data that was specific to collections in the pool industry. And I think that's because the way that we do our collections in pool and in even some of the tangential industries like home and hearth is a little different than a typical collection. AR management does help you get paid. It also reduces bad debt. There is, for lack of a better term, a consequence if a customer doesn't make a payment in a structured AR settlement. They know they're going to get a late fee. They're going to be paying interest to you. And that, for good customers, is a big incentive. I don't do it often, but it happens every once in a while. Sometimes a bill just doesn't come in the mail because I'm still old school. I make all of my people mail me statements. It sounds counterproductive because I love the technology behind it, but for my accounting in my household, I want the paper statement to go in my file so that I know whether it's a household expense, whether it's a work expense, whether it's a business expense. I kick myself on the rare occasion where I have to pay a late fee. It happened about 3 months ago. I missed a water bill. Not a big deal, right? It was a $10 late fee to my municipality. I was so mad over that $10. Never mind the fact that Friday night I went to the casino. We're not going to talk about that. But that $10 that I paid in a late fee, that really, really impacted me. And knowing that that is a possibility, the next month, as soon as that water bill came in, I was on it. So having a structure in place can reduce some possibility of bad debt. It also strengthens your relationship with your clients. Not having to write a big check or having the flexibility to buy let's say they buy a tub, right? And pay it off over time without putting it on their credit card is a big deal to our customers. It lets them build up loyalty. So when they need service, when they have a warranty issue, when they want chems, they'll come to you. Some customers that are commercial or more commercial customers, maybe you have landlords that own multiple units. Maybe you have commercial contracts and you do the Holiday Inn and the Days Inn and the Marriott. They obviously are not going to be writing you a check every time you show up, nor do they necessarily want invoice. They're going to want invoice, but they don't necessarily want it coming after every service. And that's where AR comes into play. We're able to send them an invoice on a cycle that is, for those big commercial customers, prearranged. For regular commercial customers, predictable. We use our internal AR for our own billing. One of the big secrets that's not really a secret is we believe in the software as much as you do. We use it to run RB just like you use it to run your business. Our statements, our accounts, everything is in RB for us as well. And again, we sort of touched on it. Having payment options for your customers is always a thing. Just makes them feel better and more comfortable. Nobody likes to write that big check. There's always the theory we're going to use the store's money. And really, while it's probably not costing us anything, we can let the customers have that sort of leg up without having to worry about going to some sort of third-party lender or dipping into some different credit card schemes or different payment options. This lets you manage things on your own, and it does control it to an extent too. So good stuff. Plus, if I have my pool serviced once a week for the entire season, I don't want to be getting an invoice every week. I want you to send me a statement at the end of the month. And AR lets me do that. All right, let me switch over and take a peek at RB. We're going to go right into the software here. And we're going to just go down through that checklist that I talked about at the beginning. At the beginning of the day, we said that we are going to be taking a look at the setup piece, and that's where I'm going to start. So let me push that button, switch the screen. And here we are, nice and comfortable inside RB. The core of accounts receivable, because it's something that touches all of your transactions, it starts when you do your company setup. And if you were in a position where you never did it or didn't want to do it, the first place you might have to visit to think about an implementation about this is all the way back in your original setup. There's a couple of different places that we're going to visit, but the first one is related to if you're charging interest or finance charges to your customers. This is in your preferences tab in your company setup. And these things are a little scattered because when we were putting them, we were debating, do we have an AR setup tab? Do we put it logically where it flows for new customers? And we erred on the side of if someone is new to RB and setting up their store for the first time, we want all like choices to be together. So that's why AR sort of got a little scattered. So for you to jump in midstream, it is a little bit all over the place. And I know that. But for a company that's setting up, it's logical because the decisions are going to be made alongside of other like decisions, not necessarily related to AR, but related to their company setup. We're going to pop in two values here. An annual percentage. So this is just what interest am I charging my customers annualized. By default, RB has a value in there of 24. That's 2% per month, 2 times 12. Check with your local regs, or check with, if you do happen to work with a collection agency, check with your collection agency, because all of those could impact this number. I know of clients that unless they specifically have a signed contract that infers a percentage of interest, their collection agency will only collect up to a certain amount. In their case, it's 1.5%, right? So even if we have it set at 2%, we want the books to sort of align with whatever our practices are. Some jurisdictions restrict what you as an individual company can charge as far as interest too. So you're going to check that. We have kind of a universal 2% set in there. It may or may not work for you. If you're going to bump it up, make sure you can. If you need to bump it down, go ahead and do so. The minimum finance charge is the minimum amount. Again, check with your local regs that you are going to assess a customer. So if I'm a customer that is carrying a $100 balance and I'm set at this 24% APR, that means that I'm going to accrue 2% per month. But this minimum finance charge is $5. This is a dollar value that's represented here. So RB is going to always assess the greater of the two values. In this case, for me to send a late statement, it costs me money. So the minimum that I am going to charge my customer if I have a late fee assessed is going to be $5. So it's going to look at those two and charge the minimum. The other thing that you're going to want to set up is you are going to want to go to your customer record setup screen. And in this setup screen, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a list of AR customer types. Now, functionally, these don't do a lot in the program. It is a tag that's there for you, for the human beings that are going to be managing AR. What this is it's a pre-built list that we can assign one of these things to a customer. So you see, I have a no late fee AR customer type. I might have a group of customers that for whatever reason, I'm choosing not to assess a late fee. Assessing a late fee is a manual process in RB. We have to select the customer or group of customers that are getting the late fee and hit them with the late fee. That's intentional because we don't want accidental fees. We'd rather have you take 2 extra steps than have upset customers. This AR customer type field up here is a note that you can sort or group your customers by so that you know what's doing with those particular customers. So if you have special circumstances or different things or different buckets that you want to lump these customers into, this is where you can identify those customers. Set up, just add the customer type that you want. Down at the bottom of the list, you're able to add. If you need to inactivate, you can inactivate. Just like most things, we cannot delete a question once it's been used. So if it's ever been applied to a customer, we're not able to delete it. And you can see I pushed that button and it said, nope, can't delete it. Incorrect syntax for the deletion. This should be like a one-time setup, but if you ever get a new group of customers or a new customer type that you want to identify, you need to know to go back in here. So that's like the first step towards implementing your AR. The second step is applying each customer record with what I like to think of the ability to use AR. So I'm going to go into any one of my customers here. And on my customer record, there is an Accounts Receivable tab. Now, if you tokenize credit cards, you know this is where you go to tokenize credit cards. But it's also where we establish different things related to the AR. For me to convert any sale to accounts receivable, for me to kick something to billing, that customer must have an AR credit limit. So most of the time, I'm going to actually quit this and go in a different way. I'm going to go to one of my sales orders. Most of the time, you're going to want to train your staff to handle this bit of AR stuff. So I pull up this sales order and I'm going to go to the modify button. So I go right to the customer record on the fly from the sales order. And from there, I can possibly assign an AR credit limit. Now, I get it. You don't want your cashiers assigning credit limits, but your managers or your senior staff may be able to do that. It can be locked down by permissions. So if you go into the employee setup, you go to that big old list of security questions, it's in there. And you can set who has the ability to establish AR credit limits. My recommendation is that you have a blanket general credit limit for your customers so that you have the ability to kick everyone to AR. You don't want to assign something crazy, because we realize by putting a number in this box, we're sending something to billing, which means that there's always that possibility. Even if it's a great customer, there's a small possibility that we're not going to recover those funds. So you want to set it for what I consider an acceptable loss value. Somewhere between $500 and $2,500 is pretty typical for most of my companies. So what does that mean? That means, let's say I set it at $1,000, somewhere in the middle. The most I'm going to be able to put on a customer's account is this amount without having to alter it again. And that can be a great starting place for your AR credit limits. Now, obviously, situations are going to be different. In this case, this guy's coming in to buy a tub or a pool. I need a significantly higher credit limit, but that's going to be a manager decision, not a front lines decision. We'll have an amount set as a best practice. That's our frontline decision. All of our customers get a $1,000 credit limit to start, flat. So whenever we need to kick something at the end of a transaction, that's where to go. Also, on the transaction, and I'll come back to the customer record screen, if I'm not able to convert something to AR for whatever reason, this button that says convert to AR will be grayed out. 9 times out of 10, I talked to the technicians. I said, why, when it comes to AR, what is the #1 phone call that you guys get? And the answer was, they're trying to convert something to AR, but they forgot to set a credit limit. If there's no credit limit, that button functionality is locked out. So I wanted to make a point to show you that. Back to the Accounts Receivable tab. So I put in a credit limit. The credit limit in use is an auto-filled field based on what is available for that customer. Now, you saw that button was grayed out for this particular customer because there's not enough room for me to put his balance to credit. So I'm going to raise his balance by $5,000 so that when we go out, you'll see that that conversion button is available to us. I'm going to assign those customer types to this customer. So this customer, we want to email him and charge the credit card that's on file because I see he has a Discover card on file. I also have this AR documents line. You see that mine is blank. This is just like your service slips. If you want to attach Word documents or merge documents, you are able to do this with Accounts Receivable. If you're looking to send out very, very specific documents based on Accounts Receivable procedures, you can do that. Check the portal or just email me and I'll show you that procedure. I'm not going to go over that procedure now because it's not as common. But if you do have a need to send out AR documentation and you want RB to have canned documents that are ready to go, this is where you can do it. That fundamentally sets up AR. There's a couple of other decisions that we have to make here. Obviously, if we have a card tokenized, we want that card tokenized. But I'm going to call your attention to this bottom section. There's an AR email field. This we want to complete if we want to do electronic billing. So if we're going to email statements, sales orders, documents to our customers. Why is this different than the email field up above? Well, quite frankly, some customers, and particularly B2B customers, may want emails going to a different place for billing versus regular account stuff or communications. So you may be in the situation where you're just going to cut and paste the email from the email field up above to the AR email field below. That's okay. But we want to put an email here so that we have the ability to do AR emails. We're also going to check, what do we want to happen when conversions happen? Well, I say I want RB to automatically email a full page receipt to this customer and a payment receipt to this customer as soon as it goes on their account. And then they'll get a follow-up probably at the end or beginning of the month with their statement, right? But this is a transaction choice. Customer doesn't have an email, doesn't want an email. You can also check the print button, and then on conversion, poof, those are going to print right away. Online bill pay, which we're going to talk about at the end, but I'm going to give it a little bit of love right now, also gets addressed through the AR tab. I turn it on with this checkbox. Poof, now online bill pay is on, just like the just like the AR email thing, right? It's one step. And I'm going to check the automatic invoice email, which means that whenever I kick to AR, it's automatically going to send it to online bill pay too. It's just good practice. Like I said, we'll talk more about online bill pay at the end when we get into the actual accounts receivable screen. So I'm going to save and go out, and now I can see, now that I've raised my customer's credit limit, I have the ability to convert this sale to AR. I see that he's given me a couple of payments, but he has a balance due of $4,200 that we're going to bill out. So I'm going to hit convert to AR, and this is going to bring up your conversion screen, the same as when you convert a sales order. You're going to make all of the same choices that you want to make to this customer. So do we want to send an email? Do we want to send a text message? Do we want to send an invoice along with it? And you can see that AR email is pre-populated based on that customer record now. I'm going to send it everywhere. Double check my normal things that I should check before I convert a sale. Yes, it's going to the right revenue center. All of the correct options are set over here because I have it defaulted. So I'm going to continue. And just like when I convert a sale outright, RB is going to do its song and dance and generate invoices and send these out to my customer. And now I've converted that sale and it's out of my sales order listing. The revenue is on the books. Pushing that button makes that sale become revenue. It makes those deposits that were previously held on that sale. Remember, he only owed me $40-some hundred. He had deposits on those. Those deposits are also recognized as revenue. It moves those deposits out of your liabilities and into revenue. You can do this for any scope of sales order, whether it's a sales order from, in this case, a service. You can do it from a cash register sale if you'd like, convert it to the sales order and then convert it to AR. And the process is exactly the same. Convert the sale, clear the board, and it puts it on that customer's account. So I've now put 2 tickets on that customer's AR account. And it's important because we're going to go and we're going to pick on Paul here because that's who he was. When we go into the AR screen and take a look at his account specifically. If I want to partially assess an AR account, the really true mechanism for doing that, I'm going to open up another ticket, is we have to take the deposit on the sales order first. Now, I can do it in AR, but it's not as clean. I really only want to send legitimate balances that I intend to collect over to AR. If I am holding a ticket, or if a ticket is not fulfilled, product hasn't left, services haven't been rendered, I want to leave it as an open sales order because I might need to change, modify, add, or subtract to that ticket. Once I convert the sale to AR, once I send it to be billed, just like a converted sales order that had a $0 balance, even though ours now going to AR have a balance, that ticket cannot be modified anymore. And that's important to know. So if I needed to follow up and do something else, I would have to do it on a new ticket. So food for thought for you to keep in mind as you convert tickets to AR. Because once you send it to AR, that clock is running, so to speak. Speaking of the clock, we're about halfway through. So I'm going to give everybody a 2-minute break so that you can get up, stretch, grab a drink of water, do whatever you need to do. When we come back, we're going to leave the sales orders and go into the actual accounts receivable interface and take a look at all of that stuff. So we're going to see how to manage the AR once we have done the sale and converted it over. So I will see everybody back here in 2 minutes, 1:35. The AR screen, if you've done ledger-based AR, is set up to be familiar. What you're going to be presented with is this is your home base for all things billing. Just like the sales order screen, there are a lot of filters on the end, on this side. By default, it's going to show you outstanding accounts, but you can alter these to see paid accounts and all transactions if you want to. You can also narrow it down by revenue center. So if I just want to deal with my retail revenue center for outstanding accounts, I can set that up. The top box, if you have multi-locations, will allow you to segregate things by location. As you move down this column, you're able to select an email account that's been set up in RB that is the default email account for RB AR emails to be sent from. All of the email accounts that are set up in RB will be present in this list. Find the one that you like, hit save default. And now that particular email account will be set for all of your AR emails. So if you have an AR at or an accounting at email that you want this communication to go to your customers from, make sure that your IT and you get together, set up that email account. Remember, to set up an email account, you need the app password. That's why I say get your IT involved. If you don't know how to generate an app password, they have to do it for you. Our technicians don't have access to that for you. But once you have that information, you plug it into RB and get going. You also have some other options. If you are assessing a program fee, you can choose to turn it on or off based on your AR status. You're going to set which smart pay processor you are processing with for credit card and ACH payments. And we'll talk about the AR batch in a little bit, but you are able to batch up credit cards of customers that have credit cards on file and do them all at once. But you're just going to check this column down to the create late fee button. We don't want to push the create late fee button, not yet, right? To make sure that you're seeing what you want to see. From there, you go over here and you see a normal RB grid presented to you as a ledger view. Remember, this grid is flexible. Everybody is on SQL now. There's not the old legacy access product out in there anymore, right? That's not been supported now for a few months. So everybody has the ability to make the columns that are most important to them be right up front. So in this case, I have the age of the account balance. I have the balance due. This AR customer type column, that's that identifier that we put in all the way at the beginning for setup. And then we can see things like last payment, last statement, oldest invoice. Those are all important things, right? If I forgot to invoice a customer, I just sorted this. The last payment for this customer was last August, but I haven't sent him a statement since then. So I don't know that I necessarily would apply a late fee here. That one's on me, right? I didn't send the statement. I owe that one. The other column that I want to call your attention to that's important is the in-store credit column. Now, this is more important now than it was. If you're a longtime RB user, you know that before we had a functionality called AR credit memos that allowed you to issue credit onto a customer's AR account. Those went away because as accounting evolved, the way AR credit memos were being accounted for was AR credit memos were reflecting in your overall numbers as negative revenue. And that was not necessarily correct. They had to be backed out manually as a liability. The problem was that not everybody's accountant was doing that, right? Procedurally, there's nothing wrong with presenting AR credit memos and then offsetting your intake by whatever. But it was a process that had to be manually done by your accountant. To make sure that your numbers are more accurate and reflective of what the process is, and to save your accountant from manual work, we eliminated the AR credit memo, and everything, for good or for bad, is now an in-store credit that would be credit applied to a customer's account. This is good because in-store credits get held and reported as a liability. So there's no manual manipulation that has to happen. So stores aren't, caught off guard, gotcha with surprise revenue or a loss of revenue because they just forgot to back that out manually. That's why those went away. And that makes this column important because anything that we issue that would be a negative AR balance automatically becomes an in-store credit too. So if I have a customer who has a $10 AR account balance, they're a good customer. They always pay their bills. But, my technician knocked over a flower pot and I'm going to give them a $50 credit to keep them happy. If I put $50 on their AR account, it'll wipe out that $10 and then create a $40 in-store credit. So we always need to know who has in-store credit, because generally speaking, if they have a balance and they have in-store credit, we want to eat up that in-store credit and apply it against their balance. So that's a good column to have as well. There's also some informational, like, do I have a credit card on file? If they have a check mark here, they have a credit card on file. That's important when it comes to billing. Are they an online bill pay customer? If the check mark is there, they are an online bill pay customer. I can also see their AR emails that are on file. But the most important thing for most folks is going to be the age, the balance, and when they last paid. From here, okay, Edgar here owes me $23.53. I opened today's mail. I got a check for $23.53. It's time to do the most fundamental process in AR, and that is take a payment. To do that, I go down to apply payments, and just like at the cash register, I'm going to apply a payment to this customer's account. So I am going to look at this customer's accounts. I'm going to see that he is paying me $23.53. And again, very similar to a cash register transaction, I'm going to pick the tender type, cash, check. I can pick credit cards. If that's the case, it's going to show me the merchant ID. If they have credit cards on file, it's going to be under your core merchant ID. If they're in store in person and paying on their account, you're going to want to select the EMV so that they can run their credit card, or you want to tokenize their credit card so that you have it on file. But all of that is present. We're going to, in this case, just cash it out because it's easy. And when RB processes those payments, it applies them to the account from oldest to newest. Where is our buddy Paulie? There he is, because I gave him 2 transactions today. When I click on Paul, you can see I have 2 transactions on the books here. If I were to apply a payment to his account, it's going to show me all of the invoices. He actually has some older ones here too. All of the invoices that have been bumped to his account. And let's say he's not giving me a clean invoice value. He's just going to give me $8,000. So I'm going to tender 8 grand. I'm going to click cash just because it's easiest for me in my demo. I obviously don't have a terminal hooked up here. And any credit cards I use are made up credit cards that aren't going to process anyhow. And I'm going to process that payment. What that's going to do is, well, he's set up for email, so it's going to send him email receipts. And you can see that it cleared his invoices from the oldest ones to the newest invoices. It pays first in, first out. That's how it's going to apply uneven bulk payments. If I specifically need to pay on an invoice, I need to make an adjustment and pay that back. I'm going to do this here. I'm going to put a cash payment of $249.99. And I'm going to very specifically tender it on this invoice. So I'm going to say 0 tendered to that invoice, $249.99 tendered to the later invoice. So if I need to pay something out of order, I still can, but I have to manually make sure that I'm telling RB this amount is tendered to this specific invoice. And when I process the payment, he's got a bunch of in-store credits, so I'll use in-store credits. And I'm going to process his payment. Again, same story. It sends it out and it goes. So the most fundamental level, that's how we process a payment. If we mess up from within AR, we can do a payment reversal. This is very similar to the process that you would use to reverse a payment on a sales order. You select the date. Fortunately, for us, we're on the current date. If we're reversing a payment from days gone by, there is a special accounting practice because your accountant has to manually account for that. Otherwise, your journals are going to be out of balance. But outside of that, all you're going to do is pick the calendar date and then pick the transaction out of the list. And I'm going to undo that $249 transaction that I just did. And I'm going to hit reverse. It's going to ask me, am I sure? Yes, I am sure. The payment is reversed. And now that balance is back on his account. If you catch it the day of, you're fine. It's really catching it after the journal entry that you have to make the adjustment for. So do keep that in mind. Going across the bottom, I want to select multiple people here. I'm going to take everybody. Oops. I'm going to take these 3 folks rather. And these 3 folks have a credit card on file. Well, I want to bill that credit card on file. So I'm going to prepare them in the auto batch, and then I'm going to go to process the auto batch. And you can see that those 3 folks that had the credit card on file were all queued up, and it ran it through SmartPay. And in this case, because I have test cards in my system, they all declined. It's going to give you a report at the end that shows which payments were approved and which payments failed. So you can queue up your whole list of payments for folks that have payment methods on file, and at the push of a button, hit those credit cards. You don't have to go into each one. Let me sort by my online bill pay customers. Why did I do that? Well, because I told you I was going to talk about online bill pay at the end. It is such a great service, especially with AR. But not all of my customers are signed up for online bill pay. You saw when I was in the customer record, I checked that box that said online bill pay, and I said I have to put in a customer's account there. There's an easier way to batch register your customers for online bill pay. This one we will let you do in batch. You're just going to select a group of customers and you are going to hit register online bill pay customers. What this is going to do is it's going to go through a very large process because it's going to invoice or create digital invoices for everyone that I've selected. So I'm going to have to talk while it works. But it's going to create those invoices just like if I had converted to AR and they were already in the system for online bill pay. And what it's going to do with those invoices is it's going to image them to a customer account in your online bill pay portal. From there, if a customer has an email on file, it is going to email those customers an invitation to create an account in online bill pay. So of all of those customers that I picked, only 2 of them had emails on file. Those are the only 2 that got an online bill pay invitation. From there, your customers are going to be able to pull up a regular old web browser. They'll get an email with a link that says, hey, create a username, create a password. And they'll go to their online bill pay portal. Once they've created a username and password, they are able to log in just like at their bank account, and they're able to see their account summary. Hey, I'm not sure what this bill is for. That's okay. All of those PDFs that we saw be generated, they are generated because the customer has access to those digital invoices now through online bill pay. Oh, that's right. That's my spa. I need to pay on that spa. And then the customers can pay in full. They can pay an amount. Procedurally, this is the exact same process on the back end as if they had a credit card tokenized and you ran their credit card. The difference is psychological. You're not running their credit card. They are paying you. So by making it their choice, folks are able to recapture significantly more money. And it pays the same way. It takes the AR balance and pays it from oldest to newest. So if someone just put in an amount flat, it's going to pay it down first in, first out. If the customer chose to pay a particular statement, they're able to pay a particular statement. And then once this processes, I'm going to fake it and not process. On your end in RB, this is how you get paid from online bill pay. You'll get an attention sign down here. And if you were to click on it, it says, hey, there's online bill pay stuff that needs processed. You're going to go into process online bill pay payments, and you'll see a list of all of your customers that have sent a payment. And when you push this process button, that's when the payment will hit their charge card and get applied to their account. So online bill pay is super simple and it streamlines stuff because you never have to take a phone call with credit card numbers again.